I was like, holy shit, I literally just won the EBI Absolute on my first try. It hadn't even set in at that point that Gordon and Nicky Rod had both like won that, and that they were the only guys to do it so far. And then it was me. And then not only that, I was the first 10th Planet guy to do it on the 10th anniversary. It's like, dude, it felt magical as shit, bro. Like I didn't really consider all those things. But then when people are coming and telling me these things, like, man, like we've never had a 10th Planet guy win this event before. And then like it happens on the 10th anniversary. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, is somebody like reaching down and messing with my life? Is this part of sacred geometry or something? Like, what is going on, you know?
What is up, ladies and gents? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of the Grappling Hour. We have a champ here today, not just a one-time champ, not even a two-time champ, multiple-time champ, who will be joining us here in just a second. But before we get to him, a few quick reminders. One, if you like our show, and I hope you do, you can go support us by going over to patreon.com/grappling hour. If you go there, you can see these interviews 30 days before anybody else. And you can also see some extra bonus content like tape studies and a segment that we were going to call Road to ADCC. But I don't know that they're the A show anymore, so I don't know if I'm doing that segment anymore. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think we'll do something. There's a lot of good people going, like our guest, who are pretty badass, and we want to see how it was they were able to make their journey on over to the big shows. Not just one, there's actually 2 big shows that week. So we'll do an analysis on that, but that is only for premium users here on the Grappling Hour. You can also like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't know what you want to comment on, by the end of this video, I will give you a prompt. Additionally, you can also get merch. You can get some Grappling Hour shirts and hoodies. You can go on over to rafasparza.com/merch. Get you hooked up right now. Supporting the show supports me, which makes all of this stuff go. All this, you can't see the little switcher I have here. Just lots of fancy stuff thanks to people like you. Oh my God, I literally turned into PBS. The show is brought in part by people like you. Man. All right, we'll see if we can get the copyright out on that one. And last but not least, join us on the Grappling Hour Discord. All right, about our guest. I did mention not a one-time, not a two-time, but now an absolute champ and somebody who just recently was announced that he will be participating in ADCC. And for funsies, after winning EBI Absolute, said, you know what, why don't I go compete against somebody else who got the call up for ADCC? So he's called it one of the most incredible weeks of his life. And we'd like to say welcome back to a longtime favorite of ours, one Ryan Aitken. Sir, how are you doing?
Fantastic, man. best feeling I could possibly have in my life so thus far, you know. I feel like I feel very like all my time spent in jiu-jitsu has been validated. So here I am. I'm trying to not be fat and happy though.
Well, you do have to be in shape. You do have to be there. And it's very funny because the last time we were talking, all I was thinking was, is Ryan Aitken going to do a PGF? Because that's a 205 division. And then when I started thinking about that, I go, okay, well, now we can kind of eat some stuff. Well, not the case. Some things happened before that. And you got to be a little bit thinner and leaner for your next upcoming endeavor. So, man, it seems like all over the place for you, sir.
Yeah, man. I was pushing 217 that Sunday for EBI Absolute. And then I had to make a water cut down to 205. I think I was like waking up at like 214. So that wasn't too tough, you know. But moving forward, you know, I'm going to have to be able to make that cut back down to 193 again or 194. I'm I'm keeping my fingers crossed that maybe there's like a 205 EBI in the future and not 185. Because, God, dude, I will say though, I don't know if I am down for a 205 CJJ just yet. Those boys will be big and they'll probably hit really fucking hard.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, which is it's one thing to do just regular jiu-jitsu with a weight cut, but then doing one where you're a little water depleted and you're trying to get your wits about you again, and then having somebody slap you, that's where serious things can happen.
Yeah. I'm not looking to get CTE. If I was, I could be like going to striking classes and trying to get an MMA again. You know, the just to go on a little tangent here with MMA, the only way I was ever gonna get back into MMA was if somebody like from one of the monster teams, like if Sean Strickland, recruited me to come do some like jujitsu with him or some shit, and then I got like an in back to MMA. That was the only way that I was ever gonna like do it. But now after winning EBI, I don't know if that's really so much on the table anymore.
Well, you seem to have weighted things out very nicely because now there's a lot of opportunities for grapplers all over the place. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't ask. You had a seeming pitch at the end, or at least people were pitching it for you that were saying, like, let's get Ryan on ADCC. I had made the pitch. I was like, well, I'll also take you at Craig Jones Invitational. Was there any reach out from both organizations, or did you just get the call or the go ahead right afterwards for ADCC?
All I really knew about was that I was on the list of potentials, and I wasn't that high on it. I mean, I like when I say not that high, I mean I was in like maybe the top 4. That's not that high. If I was like, so I wasn't sure like I was gonna get invited or anything. I knew he told me that Porfirio was up there, and because of his placement with like the trials and stuff, understandably, he should be a little higher than me in that. I get it. I've always been a top 8 guy at the trials, and every single freaking one. So I knew I just wasn't really that high up there. And I knew that a good performance at EBI would probably put me up there, like bring me a little higher, um, for the consideration. And I remember Michael Plaster, right before the event came up, got the camera in my face, and then asked me, "So what's it going to be, ADCC or CJI? If you had to pick." And I'm gonna tell you the same thing I told him, man. Like it's like they're both very appealing. Don't get me wrong; they're both really high up there. But I understand why athletes would have a reason to go to either or. For me, I had to go with ADCC because while there is $10,000 to go to CJI, I've spent a hell of a lot more than $10,000 to go to ADCC throughout my life. So I need to get in there. I got to do it. That's why I've been doing the trials. I wouldn't have gone and done the trials if I didn't really care that much. So, I've been working towards it for a long time, and it finally happened. So that makes me, I think, one out of maybe 5 or 6 Georgia natives to ever go to ADCC. So that's a huge honor to me.
I have to say, I'm not in this space, so I don't know what this feels like. But doesn't it feel good to have the element of choice kind of start to pop up? Because before there's only one show in town. So from at least one perspective, was it good to kind of feel like, hey, I did a good job at this big event, and now you hope these are the doors that are afforded to you? Most other organizations, you can go to different teams, you can go to different facilities, and that's how you can leverage it. Here, for the first time, it looked like our athletes are starting to get kind of a choice or an option as opposed to just one destination.
Yeah, I could see it that way for sure. I could see maybe in the future, like there could be bidding between athletes and stuff. Maybe athletes would have better games for the style in ADCC or the style in the pit at the CJI. I mean, I'm not going to lie, the pit sounds pretty dope. I've been watching the karate combat ones. and that looks like an interesting new nuance, is having the angled walls right there. Not saying I would want to like run and jump off of them like Monkey King UFC, but yeah.
It definitely adds some Stooges elements to the proceedings. And listen, I think everybody gets a seat at a table, and you were somebody that I was rooting for. I didn't care where you ended up, honestly, just as long as you got to show your great jiu-jitsu, because the hope is every time you win something that somebody notices and that you get your next opportunity. And the tricky part with trials and all these sorts of situations or invites, you never know. So you're always in an anxiety ridden kind of, is this enough? Is this it? And I just thought at EBI for you, it was like, this is undeniable now. Like, he has to go somewhere. It's just a matter of where.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I've had, ever since turning 30, I was in a really dark place. Especially after having lackluster performances at the trials and stuff. I was way worse off at the East Coast one. I felt like I was recovering it at the West Coast. Just kind of dropped the ball against Wojcik with the rule set and stuff. But I feel like even leading up to the EBI Absolute, I feel like I was in a better place. I was game to go compete, but it's not like I had the expectations of winning it or anything. And that's what's great about having a world class coach with you. Like for me, I got Sean, and Sean just is like, dude, you belong here. Like you're going to, you're going to do really well. Even if you don't win this, you're going to put people on notice. Like they're going to see that you belong up here with some of these names. So I just went out there and took it one match at a time, just like I did with my first CJJ, and then I ended up winning the biggest tournament of my freaking life, um, and and then I started to see those opportunities come in, and I'm like, holy shit, I freaking belong here. This is what we've been working towards, and I think I've just been working towards it for so long that even though I might have my doubts and stuff, it just feels like I do deserve it when it starts coming in the door. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to say I don't deserve the opportunities with like this imposter syndrome and stuff. But while I might have my doubts, when they do come, I am ready for the opportunities. No homo. No Diddy. No Diddy.
No Diddy.
No fucking Diddy.
I think you'll appreciate this. Somebody on the team, to like throw everybody off one day, just goes, "Hey, guys," and we're all like, "Yeah," and he goes, "All Diddy," and we go, "Wait, what?" And we just heard him say that, and I go, "Damn, okay, all right, that's how you're gonna play this." Well done.
Only Diddy.
Only Diddy is actually worse, by the way. But I have to say, anybody who's done anything under pressure where they have to perform, as much as you prepare and you get into a good space mentally, sometimes they just arise. Like these thoughts arise, which would sound silly because you've already won Combat Jiu Jitsu twice. So a lot of people would think, how does that happen? It just happens. And then when it does, if you've got a good team and a good center balance in your own life, you find that those things can be alleviated because you become task oriented. It becomes, all right, I'm going to go out there. The job today is to do this. And man, there are very few people in the business with as good of a record as Sean. So I know that's such a huge thing to have in your back pocket. But you mentioned going out there and going match by match. So why don't we start, as we always do, with your very first match over at EBI, sir. So tell us a little bit about what was going on with you in that very first match as you were starting to get things off.
Okay, so I knew I was going to fight Adrian Nez, and I hated that because I love Nez. Me and Nez shared the same bus. It was like a van to the first CJJ I did in Cancun. So we dealt with the whole traveling with all these Cancun people, with like the taxi people, like the mobs, like ushering through the mob, getting in the van, them driving. I mean, that is a third world country, dude. They drive different over there. All right, there's no lanes. They're like what looks like there might be 2 lanes on the road, they turn into 4. It's crazy. And and like those videos that you see of like the buses just going like head on and then turning at the last second, that shit's happening real time in Cancun. So anyways, so we get over there. I was me and Nez just hit it off, man. Like we talked about Dark Souls and video games and stuff, and we just clicked. So it really sucked when I saw that I had him first round out of all the other 15 people over there, but whatever, and I knew Nez had caught me at the Zapatero years ago with this freaking Kyotera lock. So I knew, like, he's got good leg attacks. I recently did the Zapatero battle of the promotions thing, and so he was on my team too there, and I just know he knows how to pull on a leg pretty good, like Andre, and so I knew it was going to be a tough match. And Sean gave me a strategy. We worked that strategy, and a lot of it had to do with like the heat, like knowing that it was hot as shit in that building, and trying to like really keep the pace up and stuff. And eventually, like, I was able to find an opening, and since we were short on time too, and I know Nez was going to have pretty experienced overtime, I knew that if I saw the arm right there, instead of going for like the back and trying to do a choke with 30 seconds left, I was going to jump on the arm, and Nez went for like a late escape on that. But I've got pretty solid arm bars, more so recently, and so I happened to catch that one that time. So it was good. It was a good match. Nez definitely had me on my toes during the match and leading up to it. I was definitely worried about Nez for sure.
Yeah, Nez is a friend of the show from way back, and like you mentioned, whenever these things happen or we see the brackets go out, we're just kind of Switzerland here. We're like, hey man, good luck everybody.
Yeah.
We love you all. We'll obviously try to talk to who wins. But with that one, I just go, well, at the very least, it'll be a good match. And I was entertained. It was good to watch. And yeah, you did mention you were very, very, very nice to point out a lot of the great things that he's done in his competition. And knowing that you guys were kind of on similar teams before, I know that adds like an extra wrinkle of, well, this is odd, but we're here to be.
I know, dude. I look at it sometimes and I'm like, bro, like somebody must have done their fucking research and done this on purpose, bro. I'm like, why? Like, why us, dude? Like, that we've had several matches in the past. We're just on a team together, and you're telling me out of the 15 other people, I got Nez, but whatever.
Well, sometimes you gotta give them an appetizer. You don't want to seal the deal at the very beginning. You want to kind of get them right in and just be like, hey, here's your first course. And that's the way I saw that one happening there. Because I go, yeah, like you. I go, that's a little interesting. But hey, I've seen a lot of EBI moments where we usually put up on our posts on our Instagram. We'll say like, hey, tell me your top 4. And in yours, I did get some people who, when they sent it back to us, were like, man, I don't like that match. And I was like, me too, dude. But it is what it is. It's what we're here to do. So it did start off well, but it continued to go well because you ended up with another submission in your second match. So tell us a little bit about what happened.
God, I had to fight that giant guy, Franco Pana, I think. I've seen footage of him doing these EBI absolutes before, so I wasn't surprised to see him in the bracket. And I watched his match against Luke Griffith from the last one when I was kind of thinking, okay, well, there's a chance I'll have to fight him. And I just kind of felt like I was going to end up having to fight him, and early on in the tournament too. So I, of course, I needed to study him. And I saw that Luke had also played guard against him, and he ended up getting into like a wrestle up on like a single leg against him. And funny enough, in that match, I tried that a couple times about halfway through it when I was wearing him down. And he shut that shit down so fast. He knew that I wanted to like get a flank and a wrestle up on him. So he was prepared for that. I knew that if I could just like get him to like fall back and like jump on his leg, I could get him to tap. He looked like he doesn't really handle the submissions very well. Um, but it's hard to get him there in the first place, you know? So what we did was we kind of applied this strategy where like I saw him, I think I saw him like throw Kalan in their match. So I knew that his stand up was going to be pretty good. So we were hoping to maybe utilize the get down rule if he couldn't just take me down, you know, because we wanted to get the match on the ground, but I also didn't want to look like I was just trying to pull guard or anything. And I knew like if I just like sat down, he was just gonna keep me at arm's length the whole fight. So I was hoping we could like get up in some clinch, and we did that, and he was ready for it. I don't know if he trained for it, but I was having trouble getting like a butterfly lift and getting to the legs right there. Um, so really the match turned into wearing Pana down by basically making him do up downs, because when he would keep me at arm's distance, I'd do a snap heist, and then when he'd stand up and want to wrestle with me, I might wrestle with him a little bit, I might shoot on him, but ultimately we were going to work our way back down to the ground where I was going to make him have to stand up again. And it was just making this big guy do up downs that I feel like wore him out and made him realize he wasn't just going to, make short work of me. And I he would end up learning later on into the OT that it's really hard to armbar me. So he wasn't going to be able to pull off what he did to Kalan, which was just go into the OT and armbar real quick. So I ended up getting an armbar escape against him, and then applying. I think it was the second OT that I ended up hitting the choke on him. But yeah, that rear naked choke has been a struggle for me over the last year. I was dealing with like bad shoulder issues. So I ended up coming up with like a good shoulder circuit to help nurse these things back to good health. So I could have more like driving force, and I wouldn't back off when I would meet resistance applying the choke, when guys would like start pushing against my arm and shit. And if I wanted to push their head and get it to turn and stuff. And now my shoulders feel like $1,000,000, and I can actually like put it on people right there. And that's where like I was getting like the Superman grip and stuff like that, because now I can apply things like that. I couldn't in the past. My shoulders were just trash.
When did you start noticing your shoulders were affecting you? Because I felt that even just from sleeping wrong some days, where I go, I know how I worked out today. I completely slept wrong on it. And it'll linger. It'll be one of those dumb injuries that you go, what the shit did I do to this?
Probably the biggest telling sign was if we're doing stand up and we're working a lot of underhooks, right? And you're having to like Kazushi guys by like turning them like a steering wheel with your shoulders, and you find that your shoulders are getting really sore. If you're doing a lot of OT and you're like having to hang on super tight, and guys are peeling at your arms, and you're having to constantly dig and pull and keep that elbow in front of their shoulder to keep your chest to back connection. And you find that your shoulders are getting sore there too, and you're getting a lot of searing pain and like the rotator cuffs and stuff. It's probably time for you to start doing like a shoulder circuit, because you shouldn't be feeling that in like 3 rounds of overtime. And you don't want to be feeling that and then realize you got to go roll for like 10 rounds after that. And now you got to avoid doing anything that requires your shoulders. It was literally making me sometimes to the point where like I didn't even want to do like be on someone's back because my shoulders hurt so fucking bad. Um, Another position would have been like in mount, having double unders and trying to drive their arms up overhead, and they're just pulling their elbows down really hard. If you have bad shoulders, that's just going to make them way worse fighting that, so I'm telling you, it's night and day ever since I started working on my shoulders, and I'm trying to get all of our guys to do it with me, because if I had been doing my shoulder circuits like 5 years ago, I feel like I might be in a better place. Who knows, but I feel like the shoulder issues were preventing me from a lot of finishes that I was trying to get on the back. And yeah, it sucks when you can't finish someone from the back. It makes you feel retarded.
I'm with you there. I had actually gotten a couple times where when those shoulder things were happening, this may be recent for me, where I'd be rolling with somebody and certain positions are inevitable. So you're like, at some point, somebody might get to this position on me. And then you start thinking, you're like, I have to come up with contingency plans on shit going wrong now. Like now we're at a point where if they do even just moving it, you're like, that almost feels like a submission if you don't treat it properly or you're not doing it. When in actuality, all they're doing is setting something up. So you mentioning this is giving me PTSD where I'm like, oh, Jesus. Yeah, dude. Oh, my God. And I can't even imagine competing at a high level with that
It's
happening where you've got to keep those cards very close to the vest and not ever show that sort of stuff when it is happening. So, yeah,
it's
I
not
could definitely
normal
imagine.
to have like popping and clicking in your shoulder every day. Like I don't know why we just ignore that shit, but it's not normal. And if you do shoulder circuits consistently, then you shouldn't have popping and clicking. Like you'll see that it changes. I have all this range of motion now, no popping and clicking, and it feels great.
That is wonderful to hear, man. So that goes well. We go to our third match. How are we feeling and what is Sean's overall vision now? Because he's seen you probably go from like, hey, man, we need to get you dialed in to, all right, you're in your zone. You look good. But now we've got 2 more matches before we win this.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I look Fedor's really tough, but that other side of the bracket, Big Dan versus Giancarlo, was going to be a way tougher semifinals match. If I lost to Fedor, it would be a very non-eventful regulation because I just wouldn't be able to get a hold of him, and then he'd probably beat me in OT. On the other hand, on the other side, whoever came out of that one was either going to be kind of injured or extremely tired. So, I knew that going in there. So it kind of made me feel like I needed to finish Fedor as quick as I could. I just went. I knew like what legs were weak in the qualifiers. He got straight ankled by our other guy, and and basically like it was I knew that he was going to have one weak leg. I didn't know which it was, but I've just known Fedor. Like I hit like a knee bar on him the first qualifiers I did for the first CJJ, and back then I actually injured my damn rib going for that shit. Like he moves very like strong. Whatever direction he's moving in, he moves really freaking hard in that direction, and I ended up popping like a rib or some shit. And so I was praying too that wasn't going to happen when I went on his leg this time. And I just saw straight. Like I went for I went for a reaping outside heel hook. The first time he turned, over rotated, pulled it, did like not a running man escape, but like slipped his knee line. And then I went for it again, but this time I was expecting him to do the same thing. And so when we went to the other side of that rotation, I just grabbed his other leg, pulled it in, and he tried to do it again, but you end up in like this belly down straight ankle and my foot on his hip. And I mean, he needed to tap right there. Or he was going to take a pop for sure. Cause it was belly down. My foot was on his hip. It was really stretched out. So, you know, I was surprised he didn't just take the pop, honestly. Like Fedor's normally like willing to like fucking push it, especially on a stage like that. I was surprised.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things where I have a lot of respect for him, and it was a good matchup in my head too. And I just said, okay, well, let's see what happens here. And I could see you starting to set it up. And my hope was, all right, dude, just tap. At this point, like, I get there's money on the line. I get there's, prize, all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah, the
I
tricky
always think,
thing the tricky thing with Fedor though is like his back defense was really solid last time I fought him. So I knew that like he was gonna hide his legs and make me think I could go to the back to exhaust me like he did last time. And I got the finish last time. I didn't, I didn't know if it was going to happen again this time. So I was really worried about going to overtime with Fedor. So I just wanted to give him the props that he deserves, because that guy is a force in overtime for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So now we get to the part where we're looking at, well, at this point, you already know who won over with Giancarlo and Big Dan. So when you were watching that, did that kind of go how you thought it would go? Because to me, I was like, well, Giancarlo's won before and Big Dan is a presence. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out.
Yeah. So I knew Giancarlo was going to have the more technical overtimes. And so I knew that like I was really going to have to go after him in regulation if I fought him. Um, I didn't expect Giancarlo to be in there with Big Dan, so props to him for like really putting on a show in front of the whole crowd and all the people watching online, because he didn't have to be in there like getting into exchanges with Big Dan, but I mean he jumped into the frying pan and got into 50-50, was applying a toe hold, and I was watching it today. And I think, and oh, he also hit a pretty good straight ankle on Big Dan too. Was that no? Actually, that was Big Dan on Giancarlo, but he got out of that, which sounds pretty tough. But in that 50-50, he applies the toe hold, kind of similar to what like Nicky Rod was doing with Gordon, while Big Dan is chasing the inside heel hook there, and Giancarlo did this interesting thing where it's like he heist his hips, and it looked like he was trying to like normally you would lose this exchange going for the toe hold, but it looked like he was trying to slip his knee line while he was doing it, and it's like he's heisting with his base on the foot. Maybe I'm wrong about all that. I should probably run it by Sean to make sure I'm seeing what I'm seeing. But I think that's what was going on. But he just couldn't get his knee line out. So like Big Dan got the bite, and it like kind of forced that knee line like back in really quick, and he had to tap to that. But man, that was like a tight one, like, because if he had slipped his knee line, I don't know. He might have gotten something right there. Big Dan was saying that his foot was kind of hurt from that. So um, I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. It was a really close one.
And it's one where even as you map it out in your head before you see it live, you could see multiple scenarios playing out. Like as we're all running the simulation in our head, we're like, oh, maybe if he does this, or you see him passing here, but then Big Dan has this, or he'll be really, really good from bottom. Like it's just a really interesting thing to see play out live. Now, I'm just watching it as an audience member. You're analyzing it as somebody who is potentially seeing an opponent here. So when you go into this final match, and I think kind of what you're in for. You know that it's going to be kind of one of these slogs. It's going to be a rough match because Big Dan has this size, and he's somebody who is learning very well and makes good adjustments, but at the same point, it's got to be an interesting dilemma or equation that you have to solve going into your finals.
Yeah. So one of the first things that I thought about when I knew I was going to fight Big Dan was that I noticed that I was sitting on the side with Sean, kind of talking about strategy and stuff, and I noticed that my back was feeling kind of sore. And so what I did was I was like, okay, I know I'm going to have to be on my feet a lot with Big Dan, like in a passing position. The worst position I could probably be in is playing guard underneath him and trying to carry his weight or trying to defend against his passes and stuff like that. Framing, that's going to be exhausting for 10 minutes under Big Dan. So what I did immediately when I realized my back was feeling kind of sore, I went and I laid on my belly like we do in yoga, and I just laid there and I almost fell asleep. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was listening to a song I always listen to before I go to these big matches ever since CJJ, and I went there, laid down, listened to it on my belly, and closed my eyes, and I freaking almost passed out. And it was crazy because I remember hearing that the next match, that like in that intermission match, whatever, was happening in the super fight. When I heard that that was over and people were cheering, I just jumped up and I felt like I just took a cat nap, man. I felt ready to go. My back felt good, and I was ready to go into this really tough match.
It's intriguing that that's kind of the way you went into it. It's almost like a meditation that you slightly went into and got pulled out of. But hearing you describe that as that relaxed state that probably is very beneficial, but with the slight risk of, wait, am I on? Is somebody going to wake me up and pull me out to go do this?
They would. Imagine waking up at like out of a nice dream. You're dreaming of like being on the beaches, you know, like under some, you know, jungle canopy, birds flying by, and then someone just starts shaking your shoulder. Hey, get the fuck up! You gotta fight Big Dan. God damn.
What a great thing to wake up to. Like it's actually the reverse version of you went out. Somebody like wakes you up and goes, you went out, and you're like, cool. So just kind of come back alive. No, you have to go fight again. Okay, go back out there. Good job, guy.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh, sounds fun. Okay, let me just make sure my conscience works and we're good. I just love the fact that you describe what is a good relaxed state to get into when you do know you have this big match. What went according to plan when you were having that match with Dan? Like, what was going to the way you thought it was going to go when that match was going on in regular?
So I was hoping to do something similar to like Andrew Tackett versus him, minus the shit talk. I don't like to talk shit because I feel like what goes around comes around, and that applies to everything, you know. So I definitely didn't want to bark up that tree. So what I did want to apply though was bringing him out into a long match. And I could tell that he might have knew that that's what I'm doing because he was breathing through his nose. And so these were things that I was noticing about him, and he was being very calm. But what I also think was going on there was I think he was this is what happens to me, especially was happening to me like a year or two ago. Was the longer a match goes on and it's not going the way I want it to go, and I'm not just grabbing someone and breaking something, I start to get this panic feeling like, oh my God, is it going to go the way it's supposed to? Like, what the fuck? Am I going to let it slip through my fingers? You know, I don't know if that's what was happening, but I was hoping that we could get that. So like that mental portion of it coming out. And that's probably why like Andrew Tackett talks shit, because he's hoping to like bring that out of someone. I'm hoping to do that without talking shit. So I think that might have happened because what was crazy was I didn't think he was as tired when we went into OT as apparently he was. But he has a very good poker face because he was breathing through his nose the whole time, which takes a lot of discipline. And he did not look like he was getting flustered at all. There were a couple times where like I would stand up with him and he would come tie up for a second. And I feel like the strength of a grizzly bear, and then I'd be like, oh shit, I got to sit down. And then we'd sit down, and then he'd drop his weight on me, and then like he'd just do a quick hip switch, and next thing you know, he's around my guard, and I'm having to play defense like I haven't really felt in like a long time, man. Like when I used to train with my coach Leo Noguera, you know, he had a side control where he'd get to side control and like hold me down, and I'd have to like make sure my frames are in a good position and stuff. And I just felt like I was fighting a bear, you know. And this was something similar, just plus another like 80 pounds. So it was like I felt like I had handled it before, but it was definitely a wake up call because it's been a minute. And it's always nice to have Sean in your corner to kind of help you keep your cool, because it's hard to not panic when you end up under side control from somebody like that, you know?
Yeah, I like to tell people that there are some people who exceed maybe 20, 30 pounds now at my age where I go, oh, this feels like death. You know, like maybe if I was a little bit younger, I could basically endure a heavier opponent. But now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, yo, if you're 30 pounds over and you know how to apply your pressure, this shit is fucking the worst. And I will be the fastest person to look at the clock and go like, how long do I have to do this for? This is, I can choose to do any other sport, but I choose this. Okay, good to know. But in your case, looked good, man. I mean, it was a definitely a very entertaining match. And what I found very interesting was how it was building to the overtime. And you could hear it on commentary. They were getting excited. Like they were getting blown up more and more. And of course, it culminates in this amazing looking rear naked choke where I think Brandon McCatherine had an out of body experience. Like the way he was calling that one, the Holy Ghost went in him. And I go, man, what a great moment. Like as broadcasters, we hope we get to communicate those moments. So I heard that and I said, well, great job, Brandon, but great job, you. What did it feel like to land that submission in that moment?
If you look at my face, man, I couldn't believe it. Honestly, like I was laying there, and I just couldn't believe that it was over that quick. I was really ready to have to escape some arm bars and get into just this get in the mud. I didn't think that it was going to be over in the freaking bottom of the first. It would have been, you would have seen like a lot more panic and tiredness on my face if it went on for another two, man. Because like I feel like if Big Dan took the strategy of just like riding me out with overtime, like maybe like going double unders and just locking his S grip like Devontae did, not attacking any chokes or anything, yeah, it would be boring, but you'd ride out and win in overtime. Then it might have been a little different, man. And I was definitely worried about that for sure. I have some contingencies for that, but that's a tough one, man. When guys just lock their fingers S grip like that, that's tough. It's tough to escape that one. So I was worried about a big guy doing that to me for sure. But when it was over, it was over. I was like, holy shit, I literally just won the EBI Absolute on my first try. It hadn't even set in at that point that Gordon and Nicky Rod had both like won that, and that they were the only guys to do it so far. And then it was me. And then not only that, I was the first 10th Planet guy to do it on the 10th anniversary. It's like, it felt magical as shit, bro. Like I didn't really consider all those things. But then when people are coming and telling me these things, like, man, like we've never had a 10th Planet guy win this event before. And then like it happens on the 10th anniversary. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, is somebody like reaching down and messing with my life? Is this part of sacred geometry or something? Like, what is going on? I was like, it was crazy to me. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. And I wish I could have like laid there on the mat crying, like some of these world champions do and stuff. But like for me, I was just like, for one, I was fucking exhausted, and I was hot. For two, I was surprised, bro. I was really surprised. Like it just played out that way, and I don't know, man. Like today, I watched the whole event and I shed some tears because it's what I've been working for the longest time, and I feel like it really like made me feel more purpose, and I don't feel too bad being 30 years old now because I got these accomplishments under my belt, having spent 15 years and all this money in the sport, and I'm still renting. I don't own a fucking house or anything. So and I have a dad and a like family telling me, Ryan, why don't you just open a gym now, dude? Like, why are you still competing? You're not going to be able to hang with the young guys forever, and then to hit this, like, I'm like, holy shit, like I can do it. I don't need to open a gym just yet. I can stay on the circuit for a few more years. And it validated all this time, and all the times that I told him, no, I'm not opening a gym yet, it just made me feel like, I made the right choices. And that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling. A lot of people probably feel the way I felt a couple months ago, where you're just like, have I already done everything that I've wanted to do? Like, is that the best it's going to be? Should I just like do what everyone else does, focus on making some money and be happy with what I've gotten, my old roommate used to talk about that before he opened his gym, about how when you turn like 29 or 30, you start to get complacent about things, and I was like terrified of that. And so to finally like achieve this and know that, there's more on the horizon, there's more opportunities on the horizon, I feel so much less pressure. I feel like I love myself a lot more, and I'm excited to see what lies out there, and I love all the people that supported me doing it, like I couldn't have done it without Sean. I couldn't have done it without the guys at 10th Planet Atlanta. I've had so much love and support from the 5 different gyms that I've trained at. There's been a couple people that have been bitter over the years, but I get it, man. Like, it's, we're all like little villages, but regardless, I've had a bunch of support from so many people from so many different walks of life, and I feel like they've all contributed to this, and it's just finally manifested, and I'm proud to be able to do it while still training out of Georgia.
Good for you, man. I mean, one of my favorite things to tell people, because I get this too. Even my wife is like, why don't you open a gym? And I'm like, one, it's not that easy. Like, it is an endeavor that'll engulf your life. So our loved ones sometimes have a certain perspective on, jiu-jitsu be poor, hear how money happen. And it's like, it is not a perfect equation. I wish it was. And you do see people who are successful at that, and it is a possibility. But you're right. In your particular situation, you are kind of in your prime, arguably still reaching toward it. But you have this momentum going on. And that's part of the reason why I think so many of us are so excited about these opportunities, is it's because so many people have been in their primes and didn't have these opportunities. But it is kind of fortuitous that now you're here and good things are happening so that you get more opportunities and you can do those things. And what I like seeing is when those moments, they are sometimes not even said. So what you just described is a plethora of emotions and feelings, and maybe they have the mic on you for 3 minutes to get your feelings. You can kind of tell there's more going on in your brain. Like, you're responding and being like, all right, let's get my chant out because I love my people. So I need to know.
That was for them. That was one. That's in the future. I'll have way more to say, but I wanted to do my best to call out my people, man.
Hey, listen, dude, you were taking care of the home base, and I was like, all right, I know that's what's going on. All right, good. But we only hear from you for a little bit, but I tell people there's a subtlety in people's facial expressions where you go, oh, okay, this one meant a good deal. And then you have people coming in and being like, World Star, like, let's get that ADCC invite. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let's get him somewhere. So it's part of the reason why I like doing these shows, is because I like the ability to ask what's going on in your head, because obviously I know that you're tired. And now that you mentioned it, when it was hot, I also forgot you could have also been passing out in between that last match as you were waiting for it to happen. When you're like, yeah, I just fell asleep for some reason. I was like, oh, right. Exhaustion and heat could have been part of it as well. But then you rallied, because I saw footage of you with everybody after the fact creating a dance circle, and you, championship in hand, are in the center of this circle. And it looks like everybody from production who should be cleaning up things, but is probably in the same space of like, you know what, give us at least 20 minutes to just kind of enjoy what this is. So what was happening there? Because I think I recorded footage of it. I'm not sure. I have to check my records.
Look, I can't break dance like Boogie and Geo. And I'll save the hip gyrations for another time. But I definitely got some heel toe and slides from my college days for sure. And that pin drop, I owe it to the Asian kids I used to hang out with in college and high school.
I was very happy for you. You with your mobility, I think you have a move or two that is probably you're just underplaying it. I have been told when I go to weddings or things, they're like, "I didn't know you could move like that." I was like, "Because I'm old." Like, yeah, kid. There's a version that knows how to do some things, but
Yeah.
I was very happy for you. I did want to ask this because you did kind of allude to it that people were coming up and talking to you. I got word that Eddie was very happy that they did have a 10th planet representation in that. Did he tell you anything in particular? Because I'm sure a lot of people are throwing stats at you like, you're the first to ever do this as a guy born on this date in this year under this Scorpio sign. Like, what does that feel like? But I know that Eddie knows these things very well when it comes to 10th planet. So what did he say to you?
uh, I mean, dude, Eddie, look. I told Eddie I was just so happy to make him proud, man. Like I've never seen Eddie smiles so much, and I'm getting to know Eddie more and more. Like I know he likes cats a lot, for example. Um, but it's like because we're on like different sides of the country, it's like I only really see Eddie during moments like this. And Eddie was very proud that I could bring it home for 10p. He's been doing these promotions for the longest time, and the Danaher guys have been taking like all the belts, and like we used to have like Geo would win one, um, and hold on, who else? I think Thor won one. Like we've had a few 10th Planet guys win, but the Danaher guys have been just stealing the show for like a decade, and this isn't, by the way, this is me not putting words in Eddie's mouth or anything, but I'm trying to see it through his eyes, I guess, because he was just so happy that I could fucking win it, and prove that 10th planet is still in the running, man, and that 10th planet is not going anywhere. So um, I'm glad I could show that. Sean is a world class coach, man. He's easily in the top 3 now in the world, and he is under Eddie. He's looked at Eddie as a mentor for a very long time, so it must feel like it's a piece of Eddie out there too that's bringing this championship belt home. So I think that's why he really likes it. So I was glad I could be the one to do it. But what's crazy is I think that anybody from my team had the potential. They just had to be at the right time at the right place. And I happen to be the most experienced one, so I just happen to be in the right time, and at the right place. But you give it 4 more years, and I promise you, you're going to see some of these other guys like Kevin, David, Luke, my other roommate Densu, who's a heavyweight. He's going out to I think Mississippi to compete, man. And we're all out there repping 10th Planet on the national circuit, and y'all are going to be seeing us pop up. I mean, a lot of people know about Kevin now, but we got baby David coming up too, and he's going to be bigger than me. So it's we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for like, I'm just the first, dude. It's crazy. Y'all don't, like, people don't know that I'm literally just the first breaking the icebreaker, breaking the surface. It's about we're about to put 10p out there, man. It's crazy.
Good on you. And I have to say this because I know you can help facilitate it. Oh my God, I have to look at the records here. I don't even know that Sean has been on the show, or if he has, it's been a minute. But out of due respect to the last performance that you had, I just had it in the back of my mind. I'm like, I'm booking Sean very soon. Like, we have to have another, like, discussion, especially going into this busy season that's coming up. But I was like, at the very least, just so I can be like, yo, props to you, buddy, because what a run that he has been on. So I think that he is next on my hit list very, very soon. So just give him the heads up that I will be reaching out to him sooner than later.
All right, I can do that.
What I would say here, though, is okay, so you don't just have that going on. The next week, you're going into a big matchup, and it gets more attention once they announced you were in ADCC and also your opponent's in ADCC. So it almost, this match that on paper was already good now has more eyeballs looking at it. So what did that feel like, especially just out of that rush from all of the emotions you were feeling from EBI?
Okay, so that was another thing, was going into the EBI, I knew that like if there was one match that out of all of these matches that I wanted to win the most people would say, oh, well, if you're going to fight Big Dan, that must be the one. No, dude, the one that I felt like I needed to win was against Porfirio the following week, because it was happening on my home turf, for one. For two, I have had like 3 losses to Porfirio back in the day, before I was training with Sean. And it's like he was one of those guys where I'm like, am I ever gonna be able to beat him? And it was even so bad that like guys on the local circuit that might like were we have this smaller promotion. I'm going to shit talk right now. We have this smaller promotion called the NFC over here, and they don't give a shit if anybody gets out of the Georgia circuit and starts competing nationally. In fact, they would rather they don't. They would rather they continue with their bullshit amateur MMA promoting. And when I say that, I mean like they want to make ticket sales and get you to sell your tickets to your family and friends. And no, you get 1 coach, you don't get 3. Fuck you, and then they want to get them in there. They want to do some bullshit rule set that they made. They don't even know what jiu-jitsu looks like, bro. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't know if they should make heel hooks. They'll make bad calls. I'm seeing my thing lag right now. I just want to make sure that it's not lagging while I shit talk and rant.
I think you're slowly adjusting back in, sir.
Okay, there we go. Okay, let's get that bit rate back up to speed. So, anyways, these guys were like trying to make a match between me and Porfirio years ago, when I definitely would have like just taken another L to him, because they were like modified IBJJF rule set too. And they weren't gonna pay us shit, bro. They were gonna pay us. They would probably been offering to pay like 200 each, and then make it the main event or some shit, So it felt really good when Enigma reached out. And originally I was supposed to have a match against another tough new wave guy who has their belt, Abe, the creator of the A block. But that fell through, so they set it up with Andre, and I was like sweating that shit because I felt like I had so much to prove to the local community too. So like that was like daunting to me, and it was while I had the EBI like victory. This is going to sound silly. Some people might not like want to view it this way and stuff like that. I was like, all right, next I got to prepare for Andre. I got to make sure I'm ready, because I'm not about to win this and then go drop the ball against him, especially when I got all this stuff to still prove on the local circuit, and it felt so good when Enigma reached out and they were like, hey, we'll give you X amount of show money, which was like more than I was like expecting, and X amount to win. And Andre got the same thing. We got paid, baby. NFC won't fucking do that, bro. NFC won't do that. They'll be like, oh, we'll give you commission on the tickets. Man, fuck you, dude. Get out of here, NFC. So anyways, that felt good, bro. It felt good. And it was so stupid to me, because like the local community, Enigma was saying that it was hard to matchmake for the local community, because like they weren't getting a bunch of people like wanting to do Nogi and stuff, which is stupid, because Nogi is like the most popular thing right now. But Atlanta is like 5 years behind. So they're clinging onto the gi thing. And I'm like telling everybody, I've been telling everybody for like 10 years. I'm like, guys, not 10 years, like 5 years. I've been like, guys, no gi. We got to move to no gi. Like this is the direction things are going. Let's not stay stuck in the past, please. And we've had a few people move out of gi and into no gi. We've had a few people visit, and we have a few people like finally starting to compete nationally and stuff outside of the gi. But man, like, dude, it's like Atlanta, pick it up. We got to pick it up. We got to go after no gi more. So, anyways, long story short, the Andre thing was a big thing for me because I was like, if I can win this, then I feel like more people are going to see what I'm doing and want to do it too, and want to do more no-gi and move on with the rest of the world and jiu-jitsu. And I think we had that effect. I had a great time at Odyssey, where they hosted it, and I had a great match too. It went exactly as we were planning, and I was working some new techniques we've been working too. So I was really proud of that, and I'm glad we could pull it off for Atlanta.
I do appreciate the fact that you were like, listen, I don't approach my matches like Andrew Tackett, who's gonna talk some mess.
I'll talk shit about, bro. I will talk shit about NFC, dude. Fuck, like, God, dude, those guys. Oh God, bro, they've rubbed our team the wrong way for the longest time, bro. Like they used to make the shittiest calls just because we were of this team. We had a guy. We had a kid that was very talented. Does an advanced match where heel hooks are legal. Puts the guy in an inside heel hook from saddle. They roll out of bounds. The ref resets them. Like stops the match, resets them, almost DQs my teammate, and then like one of the main guys has to come down and be like, well, actually it's advanced, so heel hooks are legal, and the whole crowd is screaming heel hooks are legal. Like what are you doing, bro? And then he resets them, but not in the saddle, from standing.
Oh,
yeah, that's shady. That's fucking shady, huh?
Yeah, it's not exactly.
I'm telling you, it's small town bullshit, bro. Atlanta's a huge city. We don't need to have this small town bullshit anymore, bro. It's ridiculous.
Well, I am not as familiar with them, but you've definitely given me a good primer to know. So
I'm trying, bro. I'm trying. We have so many young, talented athletes out here, and they just need some direction, bro. That's it. And they'll show the country that they belong on the circuit too, man.
I mean, everybody knows there's a lot of really good jiu-jitsu happening in Atlanta. So I don't think that secret is out there. It's just more so of how do you curate that talent? Like, what are you doing to best put the platform out for that? And I think that's more of the argument you're making.
Yeah, move away from IBJJF. It's time to bail on that.
You know, your words, not mine. I would tell you this. I would tell you that I feel in 2 months, our ecosystem is going to change again. And I feel that people need to be very receptive to whatever feedback is in their individual organizations. And that's kind of been the way I've seen it. So like, you're going to get some new intel, you're going to get some new demos, you're going to get some new viewers. If that's the case and there's a big wave coming in, God bless and good luck to everybody here. But it's those who pay attention the most that are going to do the best business. So I don't think you're shit talking as much as giving some very encouraging feedback that if I was a business owner, I'd probably be like in my feels initially, but listen to the message, which is don't squander this wave. Like, don't squander this opportunity because there's a real pulse happening right now with a lot of really good talent.
Yep. I agree.
One thing that I wanted to ask you about, because I guess I've been able to witness your celebrations, but this one was if you were dancing on the first one with a belt in hand, this one you were in an ice bath, and correct me if I'm wrong here because I usually know my beers, but was that a Michelob Light? And if so, why that? Or a Michelob Ultra? If so,
Yeah, it was
why that?
Michelob Ultra. You could have handed me any beer, bro. Somebody. I think it was Greg, the owner of Odyssey, just ran up with 2 beers, and Han was like, "Here, bro, you deserve these." And so I was double fisting it. I passed one off to my teammate Denshu, who had some tough matches too, and then I went straight to look for more, um, and and I look in there and I'm like, "Is there any more beer?" And they're like, "No, it's empty, but you can jump in here." And so I jumped into their giant cooler, which turns out to be 100-gallon feed trough or whatever. I want to go pick one of those up now too. So you can't find those at Home Depot, by the way. I think they are at like Tractor Supply or some shit. So I got to go find myself one of those, and then yeah, dude, I'll be taking some ice baths. But I jumped in there and it felt great to ice my nuts after such a heated match. And they just put the cameras up there and I realized, oh wow, this must be really, really what's the word I'm looking for? Iconic. It could be iconic if I'm drinking beer after a match. But hey, dude, like that, like my dad was like a huge whitewater boater back in the day, and these guys would just bring beers on the river, and they would be taking videos of them like in the middle of the fucking wilderness, like with their canoes up on rocks, and them just drinking beers and smashing cans on their head and shit like that, jumping in the water. So it's a little bit of me carrying on that flavor.
You talk about iconic. My thought process was it looked like you had your Tony Stark eating a cheeseburger on the floor announcing he's Iron Man sort of moment, because the casualness of you drinking was, this is great, I don't need to move. And then I thought I heard somebody say, do you want us to put some more ice in? And you had a very emphatic no, do not do that.
Well, okay. So I listen. Like, I think they wanted to watch me break. So I was like, no, we're not doing that. No, because the thing is, there's two sides of Ryan, right? Like, oh God, I'm going to tell you this one. All right. So when I played lacrosse in middle school, right? I was on JV because it was my freshman year. I show up to varsity practice on accident, and they're like, no, yeah, you can partake, yeah. And so we're like doing some drills, and I remember I'm waiting in line to do a drill or whatever, and there's a puddle of mud, and these guys are like, hey kid, you should jump in that puddle of mud. And I'm like, like, I jumped in the puddle of mud, man. And then they called me shark bait, and so I became shark bait, ooh ha ha, whatever, because this was when Finding Nemo came out. So there I was, I was easily impressionable, and I would do things that probably didn't look good on camera and stuff like that, and just trying to be funny, trying to be accepted by everybody. And I don't know. In that moment, I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna thrust my head under this water and then look stupid, but I don't know. I don't know, man.
The moment was accomplished. Just
that's what I'm saying. I was like, why do we gotta one up it? Why we gotta try to like shove my head in the water, under the ice,
I mean, listen,
it was one of those shark bait moments. I was like, I'm not having a shark bait moment, bro.
Smart. That's growth. See, maturity. But I like the fact that as they're doing it, they're thinking like producers in their head, being like, what if we could add some ice here? And you're like, this is good. This is the moment. We're having it right now.
I didn't think about that because like when I saw it, and that makes sense. I will say, because when I saw it afterwards, and it really just looked like I was icing my nuts because my legs were out of the water, my ass is in the water. I was just like, and I'm just sitting there saying, this feels really good. I'm like, oh wow, this might not be the best side of me anymore, actually.
To be fair, I always try to grant people who compete a certain allotment of, when you're high on endorphins from competing and your brain's firing, I just give people the benefit of the doubt most of the times. Now, granted, sometimes they will say something in a post speech that it's more their id speaking, or some kind of subconscious slips out. And As an interviewer, I've learned over the years to try and ask for more context, to say, hi, I don't know that you meant to say that. Can you please tell me what you meant by that? Because it's usually a life raft that I'm throwing out there to be like, listen, people might judge you.
Oh, that's the code. Okay, I see.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a, I'm not sure he knows he says this, or I'm not sure they know they said this. And I don't always have that time. So
Yeah.
again, it's part of the reason why I like these conversations is because I go, oh, I've got the time to ask the questions. But to me, I'll be honest, I didn't have Brian's not looking good here. That's a real dick move. I just thought it was funny. I just thought you were relaxed. And I go, yeah. And I'd be honest with you in saying, if somebody tried to put me under ice and I just competed, you have a much nicer and politer version. I have been told that there is a tone to my voice where sometimes people do not know if I'm kidding or not. And when that happens, it becomes what people will refer to as producer Raph. Host Raph is very fun and friendly. Producer Raph's a little bit more direct, polite, but also don't fuck around. So that's usually when they're like, oh, I just met producer Raph and he was very pointed and told us something. It's like, yeah, it's fine. It just meant you were fucking up. So yes, I completely understand that. But
there's
a
lot of shit. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that like bells and whistles that go into production. So I get it. You know, you got to be like on point with that.
I also like a lot of the PGF stuff that we were doing. I really liked the live elements because I thrive in live elements. I like knowing that it's a high wire act and that it could all fall to pieces. But when we had certain people coming over and telling us they got into a fight, you know, my initial thing is, well, don't fight. But if you do fight, you're going to fucking come on my show and talk about it, you asshole. So sit down. So I'm very pro, like, well, if you did something, be prepared. We're going to chat about it and I will ask you about it. So I'm of a, I'll indulge nonsense just as long as it's within good fun and that nobody actually ends up getting hurt. And good news, nobody did. So it is one of the nice things that I've done because every once in a while I realize, oh, there's not an adult in the situation. Oh, they think I'm the adult. Uh-oh. Shit. Okay, let me see if I can curtail these kids from doing dumb things. So that is my small gift back. But I got to ask this, man. So between all these things, you know, normally whenever we get the people on who are going to go to ADCC, I do like to kind of circle around and ask, what would a win at ADCC mean for you? So putting the camera on you, that prompt in mind, what would a win at ADCC mean to you, sir?
So I feel like I've done, I've gotten like the mission accomplished for what I set out to do when I initially came to 10th Planet Atlanta with Sean. I learned how to be a submission specialist, and specifically that's been displayed in like EBI rule sets. And now the new mission is to show that we can transfer that to ADCC. Now, I'm gonna be real here, dude. Like, if I just get one win at ADCC with like a submission and I get to, and I mean submission, I don't want to scrape by with like points or anything, you know. If I get one win via submission and I get to hear that roar from the crowd, that will be something so glorious to me. I've been watching like footage of some of the other ADCCs, and that roar is incredible. Like that's something that I really want to hear. And I think that I'm in a good place to do it. I feel like it would be a lot to ask for me to win the ADCC on my first run there. I feel like other people have had all these different runs. They've been training for this specific rule set for so long. So I'm not going to get greedy and ask for that. But what I do want and what I do think is very realistic is for me to hear that roar from the crowd. That's what I really, really, really want. It will not feel good for me to just walk out of ADCC without that.
I would like to point this out that I feel historically for the way you have competed, it has been when maybe you're not on people's radar that you have probably overperformed. So I feel like this is one of those things where, well, hey, man, do your thing. I'm not trying to ruin anything here. I'm just saying from an outsider's perspective, I would not be surprised if you do very well. And I'm definitely rooting for you to get your opportunity to show out. And more than anything, when I heard your name on the Instagram, or I saw your name get put on that, all I could think of was, great, now next mission. And that's all I want, is for you to be able to showcase what you do. And I think you should, no matter what the outcome is, it should be recognition for the hard work you put in everywhere else. And I just tell people this. I feel like because so many things have changed about ADCC given this particular year, no one knows what's going to happen. I feel like this is a year where everything that we thought we knew about that tournament, it's a little bit turned upside down. And the chaos of it is actually entertaining to me for this sense. We may see results that differ from our expected norms that maybe create our next stars, maybe create this next generation of people that maybe get more to market and leverage themselves as athletes in other respects. And that excites me. So I'm excited people are getting fucking paid. I'm excited people get to showcase their shit. And no matter what way people end up, more grapplers get to display that week. And that is a huge benefit, I think, for the entire sport. So even if I am not there in person with you, or I am doing a fight companion, or I am sequestered doing other means of things for somebody else, I will definitely be watching and I will definitely be rooting you on, man. So big props to you for your accomplishments. And as always, I always like to give you an opportunity to shout out your team, your sponsors, anybody who helped you with the last couple big wins here. So camera is back on you, sir.
I mean, shout out to Assassin's Apparel for always having like putting the clothes on my back out there, you know. I would shout Trippy Sugar out again, but they I haven't really talked to them ever since the Subversive thing, man. They were my first Subversive sponsor. They definitely hooked me up with a lot of product, so that was cool as shit. And other than that, I mean, like it's all 10th Planet Atlanta, bro. All 10th Planet Atlanta. And someone that I don't really talk about very much, that I feel like deserves some more recognition, would be Striker Fight Center. They were the first gym that I ever did MMA at, and they also were the gym that hired Sean and brought Sean in to build 10th Planet Atlanta. So while I had left them after I did MMA, and I went to Alliance to do some jiu-jitsu over there and pursue the whole IBJJF thing, I ended up coming back because Sean had the guys that I was scared of competing against. And I was like, shit, dude, like I would rather train with these guys because I foresaw a future where these guys were going to be killers. So I came over here and I became part of that wave, you know? So Striker Fight Center, Byron and Gina made that happen. And it wouldn't have been possible without them, because I don't think Sean would have had a reason to come to Georgia without them. So, in fact, I feel all of Georgia should probably be thanking them, because we're about to have some incredible jiu-jitsu pop up here in the next 10 years.
Well, that's what's up, and congratulations to you and your team, sir. I'm going to do a little bit of a closing here, but before I do that, I'll obviously talk to you off air in a second, but again, dude, what an incredible benchmark you were able to put at EBI, because the 2 Combat Jiu Jitsu titles I thought were always really, really cool. But, you know, if you're going to the destination that's ADCC, it has a lot of history with it. And so does EBI. So you had already carved a nice little niche for yourself in that realm, in a place full of rich history. And as you mentioned some other names, that's some pretty good company to be in line with. So it's one of those things that it's very funny to me, but I was like, you know, I look at my booking sheet And I go down it and I go, all right, there's almost like a spot now I have for Ryan when he wins on these things. And you would think this would get monotonous or boring, but I do try to keep my policy of if you win, we should talk about it. And
Oh,
clearly
absolutely.
you had some things to say, but I just want you to know that independent of how many times we interview or anything like that, it should still be noted that it is so cool to see that happening and so fun to see that from our perspective. So I definitely want to give you your props and say congratulations, sir.
Thanks, man. I was gonna mention. Have you had Keith Krikorian on?
I have. Keith is a longtime friend of the show.
Hell yeah. No, dude, like I didn't know this about Keith, who's also 10th Planet. He's a freaking lawyer too. Like what?
I think I've heard word that he is pursuing that, and it's hard for me because all I've ever known him from is being a kid. Like when he first started out here, he was actually going to compete on a tournament I was putting together back in the day. And he had performed at Ultimate Mat Warriors. I saw him. He was a purple belt then. He had a great match against Jeff Real. And he sent in a note saying he had to change something for his registration. And I emailed him back and I said, we got your change, but you had a great performance yesterday. Can't wait to see you today. And he's like, oh, you noticed what I did? And I was like, yeah, dude, everybody knows what you did. You're really good at what you do. And from that moment on, it was just
too, right?
It was just like, dude, we're going to be friends. Yeah. So it's always been very fun to watch his journey too. And he's an ADCC competitor, a vet there as well.
That's what I'm saying.
And he's one of these monsters who's the nicest human being, and watching him mature into the man that he's becoming is definitely a great experience, because at his core, you know, we meet a lot of people in the sport, but he has been the one to always make sure that he steps above and beyond as just a human being. So when we run into each other, it's not just an interview kind of thing. It's hey man, what's going on? Like, what have you been up to? Tell me about this. What have you been watching? What have you been doing this? And like a legitimate person who's caring about like, hey man, so what are you working on? And what's new for your jiu-jitsu? And I was like, oh, well, I'm doing this and this, but the shitty versions. And he's good people. Yeah.
That's cool. I was just making sure you're getting the other 10th Planet guys out here too.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, Keith's won enough shit. And you know what was weird though? I'm glad you bring this up, because every so often I like to remind him this. He went on a tear where he didn't want to be interviewed. And I told him, I was like, okay, but other people, not me, right? And he goes, no, I'm just in a spot where I don't know, I want to be interviewed. And then he won Combat Jiu Jitsu. And I was like, motherfucker, you're coming on my show. Like, you don't get a choice. And he's like, oh, I want to talk now. And I was like, oh yeah, you win one of these, you want to come on the show now. So I think that was one of the last times we pulled him on, but he has an open invite anywhere. And fun story, when we've done our ADCC Fight Companion, I think in 2017, we do a bracket. So we do raffles and giveaways. So essentially, just so you know what's happening to you, everybody gets made into being a Pokemon, which means we do a raffle and they get a name of an individual who competes. And if the athlete wins, they win. And we've done this every year for ADCC. And Keith became like our board guy, like who was telling us like, oh man, this is really exciting. Today, this person advanced, which means this person win. And this person's got this person in this match. And the next year he was in ADCC. So we like to say we've sent broadcasters from my Fight Companion to the big show at on the broadcast team for Flow. But we like to say that those who do the brackets end up becoming somebody who ends up on the actual ADCC as well. So we have a very good history. So if we end up doing some kind of Fight Companion thing, I'm sure we'll have some sort of nonsense like that. But Keith was very good in that role.
And then you had Andy after PGF, right?
So what we did with PGF was Andy I pulled on the post show. And I bet big on him because I pulled him on first on my fantasy team. And, you know, when the PGF things, when it happens, you get a sense of people's personalities and who will come on. And, you know, when we talk about the production team for PGF, it's us. So I don't have a producer going over and saying like, Raph would really like you on the show tonight. It's me going over and be like, hey, fuckface, are you coming on the show or am I going to make fun of you tonight? And with Andy, because I picked him first on my fantasy league, I was like, I think he's going to win it. And I got to see this through. And so on the day he won, he comes on the post show and we're talking. And then he says something that really, it didn't irk me, but it definitely made like the hair stand up, where he goes, hey, I noticed that you didn't ask me to come on the show yet. And I was kind of getting my feels. And I was like, would you have shown up? And he goes, I mean, probably I might not have, you know. And I go, dude, I already know you. And I go, and I bet big on you. I picked you first. So I was going to have to eat it if I didn't get it right, but I didn't. And I was right. And he goes, that's cool, man. I hope I got you lots of points because, you know, I ended up winning this championship. And I was like, well, motherfucker, I also won the fantasy league. So this is a double champ show. You're a champion and I'm the champion. So just saying. And he's like, oh, fuck yeah. So we definitely got an exit interview there. And I felt like that was the right interview for him. He's been on the show a couple times before, but like that particular experience, that was like a 15-minute and it was the right, like, let's give this dude his props. So
hell yeah.
The more I can be on these post shows and do stuff like that, I feel like that's the stuff I used to do. I used to cover, like, in years past for EBI. I would be on the sides and there's interviews with me and Gordon and me and Gary and me and Eddie Cummings. And I love doing that. And then they started going to Mexico and I go, listen, guys, nobody's paying me to go to Mexico. I'm happy to do this, but that's where these hour-long interviews started coming into, because I was like, well, I definitely want to talk to you, but
I see. Okay.
You know, it's too hard to get out there. Normally here, when they were out in LA, it's the Orpheum. It's like 30 minutes away from me. So I'd be like, all right, done. If it was in San Diego, I was like, you know what? I'll go visit Boogie. I'll go visit those people. Great.
Do you not have a passport?
It's not even a passport. It's just, what financial sense does this make? Like,
well, I mean, they cover your costs for getting.
I'm not part of the troop. No. And I should say this. They liked the show that I did for PGF. So they liked the pre and post shows. I don't think we were able to make it work this time, but I took it as a huge compliment. And I always leave the door open because there was a possibility I was going to be at that EBI. So you might have had that experience that Andy got. And I sent a note to their version of me, Manny, who I love. And I said, hey, have a great show. Whoever wins, I'm going to try and pull on. And he's like, fuck yeah, dude. So I got nothing but love for EBI and Combat. Some of my fondest memories as a reporter. But no, I'm not on the payroll for them. If I was, then I think things would be a little different. And there would definitely be a little bit more of a show element. But I think business is starting to pick up for you like it is for me. So I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, no, I've been watching your show with is that Tim?
It's been Tim and Jake.
Tim and Jake, yeah.
We've been having some fun together, and we've had good offers and interest from different people. It's just right time and place, and we're happy to work for all. Somebody asked me the other day, and they're like, hey, is it okay if I made mention to put you in touch with these people? I was like, you can whore me out wherever, dude. Like, you can put anybody you want in touch with me. I'll talk with anybody.
I got you. Well, it's been great talking to you, Rev.
It has. I'm going to say goodbye, and then I'm going to say goodbye to you off air in a second here. But my thanks to you, Ryan Aitken, your multiple-time champ for both Combat Jiu Jitsu and EBI. Thank you, sir. The rest of you guys, all right, let's do this. If you have nothing to comment on in the comment section, my prompt for you right now is as follows. Tell me the drink of choice that you would have if you were able to drink a beer after a big win. We heard Michelob Ultra was one here, but that was just by default. The rest of you guys, I want to hear what it is that you're drinking. This guy's getting an IPA, maybe a Space Dust, because when I drink, I want to make it count. Trying to get a good buzz for a good bang for the buck. And if you look at the ABV of one Space Dust, you're going to feel just fine after one or two of those. So we got that going on. Like, comment, and subscribe. Those are big ones for us. You can also check us out at patreon.com/grappling hour. If you go there, $5 a month to see our interviews 30 days before anybody else. And for a few extra bucks, extra bonus content not available anywhere else. And last couple reminders, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It really does help a lot if you rate and review. You can also get merch here from the Grappling Hour. You go on over to rafesparza.com/merch. The hoodies, the t-shirts there, they go directly back into this show. And finally, if you really want to support us, go on over to our Discord where we'll be putting up questions of the day, every weekday, I should say. I try to give you guys the weekends off, but we're definitely going to be pumping that up, and that is at Grappling Hour there as well. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It has been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.